All right, Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast. Back again for another position preview. Turning our attention to the offensive line today or tonight, and yeah, interesting group, man. I mean, I think we're going to have a pretty positive discussion, both as to what this group might be, and also, where this group ranks historically. Even in the last decade or so for Florida State offensive line. So, yeah, interesting to get into tonight's conversation. We have the sponsors question. We have the sponsors kind of tied to the questions that we have. So we'll just jump right into the discussion. And Bud, offensive line. Let's hear your thoughts, and we'll go from there.
I've got a smile out of my face about this group, man. I have been doing a lot of work on offensive line play, correlations of age and experience. How much does it matter in the age of the transfer portal? I've actually been chatting with a lot of personnel guys recently, just to talk about 105 strategy, because we have the new, coming scholarships. And, one thing I've noticed is that teams are extremely reluctant to just roll with the young guy. They want somebody who has played some college ball before, because O-line is a position where you are as good as your weakest link, right? Like some positions, receiver are strong link positions. I don't want to hear how much receiver depth you got. I want to hear you got a stud, or hopefully two. O-line, I want to hear you got five guys look like they belong, man. And hopefully 7 or 8, because football is a collision sport and not a contact sport. And man, I'm just optimistic about this group for a couple reasons. One, I think overall, if we had to grade the decision, especially within the context of when it was made, to take Dimitri Emanuel as a transfer, it's unquestionably a success and a good decision by the staff. And now he's on the staff, so that's awesome. But it's still the aspect of, like we talked with receiver last week. If you're losing guys who aren't pro prospects, I think for the most part, as a program, you are to a point where you should not be projecting significant drop off if you're not losing guys who are, draft picks. Now, obviously, certain guys can make an NFL roster. Deloach didn't get picked, and that was pretty cool to see him, the other night balling out. I thought that was awesome. You lose Casey Roddick, again, not a guy who's going to play in the NFL. And I look at how much experience this line. Do you know that 4 of probably the top 7 projected contributors played college football in 2019?
Yeah, just the pre-show conversation we had was surprising to me. Look, it doesn't come as a surprise to me that the line of scrimmage is heavily stacked with as old of a group as you can get. But for whatever reason, it feels like the offense and defensive lines have much more of the remnants of the, COVID era and COVID exemptions. And Florida State's line is reflective of that general line of thought. Put it that way.
I think part of it too is just, yes, it's great to push people around and be physically dominant. And ultimately, you would like to have a bunch of guys who don't make any mistakes and are also physical freaks across the board. That's cool. And every once in a while you get like a 2008 Oklahoma type line, but that's once every couple of years. The most important thing is knowing what to do, having been in the moment, limiting mistakes, having enough physicality and physical ability to stand up to where you're not getting, destroyed at the point of attack. And I think I generally like the depth of this room. Having 4 guys from the class of 2019, 3 more, Leonard and Jacob Rizzi and Rob Scott, who, it was great to see him out there, taking some reps like that as he works his way back into it. I mean, that's quite encouraging ultimately that FSU is at a point now. You got 7 guys who I think, unless they had some kind of weird birthday, are 23, 24, or 25 years old playing on your offensive line. That is grown man status, and that is important. So I have pretty high hopes for this. I know you asked, how good can this offensive line be? I've been talking to a lot of guys who do line stuff for some projects I've been working on, and there's generally a consensus that there's 4 O lines out there this year that are probably better than everybody else. Georgia, Texas, LSU, which has like 3 projected top 50 picks. So, okay. And you handled them last year, actually, pretty well up front. And then Oregon as well, who seems to have, 2 high-level tackles and a bunch of experience on the inside. And there's probably a couple more that we would take over this group, but I don't think it's insane to think you could have a top 20, maybe a top 15 offensive line if this group gels and stays reasonably healthy. Like, do you think I'm nuts for that? I think there's a lot of potential here. I think you're muted. Uh-oh.
Good. We got that knocked down the
False
first
start.
minutes. Yep. Yeah. It's an appropriate group to profile while I false start my way on the mute button. But no, I don't think that's crazy at all, man. I mean, I look, I have a hard time judging the offensive line of practice. You watch, you're not from a great angle as you're sitting on the side of the field. It's tough, but yeah, I have been very impressed with Darius Washington. I think the flexibility that he has is incredible. But when you're starting to talk about your left tackle, then that's who you plan on being your starting left tackle. It doesn't matter that he can also snap and play guard and all the things that Darius has done at a pretty high level. Having said that, I think he's going to be a very good left tackle and a great anchor point on this line. The 2 guards have been impressive. I will say there's times where Richie Leonard looks like you might have really gotten something there. Yeah. And he seems to have taken really well to the strength and conditioning program. And then again, for more candor, I was at a practice recently. I texted a mutual friend of ours and was like, yeah, I don't know that I would think that we'll see a whole lot of Rob Scott. He went through a drill on the first day of practice but it looked like it would look if like you asked me to go out there and do a drill at age 40, having not done an offensive line drill. And then the next 2 days, Rob Scott looked really good. I mean, I'm not trying to oversell it, but it was much better the next day. And the third day of practice, there were a couple of reps where I was like, okay, I mean, you don't have to play Rob Scott in every game. Can you get 5 games from Rob Scott and kind of manage load management there? That will be very interesting. I think you're pretty comfortable with what you have on the interior. Darius is obviously your answer on the left. And then, Jeremiah Byers is kind of your starter on the right, but also, Rob gives you a lot of nice options there. And, maybe Rob Scott can give you 30 snaps in 5 of your more competitive games or something like that. I mean, maybe Rob Scott's fine and he starts with no problem at all. But just when having an honest conversation about, what that guy's gone through and the fight that he's put up to even be in the situation that he's in, I don't think it's unreasonable to think that you'll have to have some aspect of load management. But it's a really solid starting 5. And there are pieces for the future that do really start to pop at you. I mean, Lucas Simmons is Lucas Simmons, and we know what he looks like. But Manasseh Atiti, I mean, look, it's early. They haven't even put on full pads. I'm not trying to gas somebody up, but that's not the type of piece of clay that Florida State's been working with at the offensive line position for a while. There's a lot to be very optimistic about and excited as to what that the young man's future might look like.
Totally, man. And you think about this, that there are some lines that you'll play that really don't project to have a lot of elite pass rushers. I don't think Georgia Tech is particularly great on the defensive line. Boston College has a total stud at D tackle, but not off the edge. Memphis, ditto. Cal is like reasonably decent, and Wilcox is an excellent defensive coach. And if he ever gets fired there, I'm sure he'll get picked up as a top flight D coordinator somewhere. SMU, we'll have to see how they handle playing in the Power 5. Last year, at times, they certainly dominated the American Conference, but again, that's also the American Conference, right? Clemson. Okay, Clemson's got some dudes like that. You're gonna have to buckle up for that one. Duke does not have dudes. We'll have to see how Miami gels. Certainly they have one in Bain who's a stud. You'll have to block, but we'll see how Barron and Messidor and those guys, how they come back from some injury stuff and how they play. North Carolina, they actually do have a dude, but that's going to be a game where your defense needs to probably dominate an offense that no longer has Drake May. And that should be something that you should be able to do. Notre Dame will be difficult, obviously. Charleston Southern, no. And Florida, I think, has real dudes on the defensive interior. But Florida's best pass rusher now starts for the Hokies. And their second best pass rusher now starts for the Rebels in Oxford. So, we will see how good Florida's pass rush is. Certainly they have some young guys they've signed with potential. But as of today, I don't think they project as an elite pass rushing group. So, you throw out two 24-year-old dudes out there. You have hopefully an improved Kyle Morlock. Maybe you can have him play next to Jeremiah Byers or Scott, or heck, maybe Otto gets some some reps there in important games, or even just in, I guess they're all important because you got to win them, but just in some meaningful snaps before the game is decided. It has been a while since you had this many bodies in Tallahassee who look like they belong at a top flight program's offensive line. And we were discussing this before the show. And it's like, what if they hit, if they stay healthy, if it all comes together? I do think this group has significant potential to be probably the best offensive line you've had in a decade. Doesn't mean it will, but I think the potential's there. And it's been a while since we could say that. Prior, like the 2015 offensive line, and Brock Rubel was a freshman, Abdul Bello was a freshman, Eberle was a freshman, Ethan Frith, freshman, Kareem R came in, I believe, as a JUCO kid, Ryan Hofeld, Corey Martinez, Chad Mavity, Cole Minshew, Josh Peters, David Robbins, and the rest are, and then Rod Johnson and Derek Kelly. I do think this group can be better overall than that group was. Derek Kelly made the NFL. Rod Johnson made the NFL and played for a decent stint, I believe, if he's not still in. Is he retired? It's been a minute.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
But still, I think, I think he's done. But still, I think this group has some real potential. Doesn't mean they're going to dominate every single game. You do play some pretty damn good defenses, but I think they're going to be able to give DJ time more often than not. And I think they'll open up some holes for the run game.
One name you mentioned there real quickly, I just want to circle back to, because I do think it's a significant building piece, is Andre Otto he's like a stereotype buster or whatever. He's super bright, kind of nerdy, whatever, reads a bunch of books that I don't think college football players normally read, but then is maybe the most locked in and focused guy at practice in a group that you have to be. Trust me, you don't go through practice with Alex Atkins as your position coach and not be paying attention, or get some very sincere words thrown away pretty quickly. But Otto, I'm really impressed with Otto. I think he's got a significant future. If he was like an inch taller, I would tell you that I would bet $20,000 that this kid would be like a first-round pick or something. He has the physical tools, but has the work ethic to develop and get everything out of his physical tools, and has 4 inches between his ears that's desperately needed at this position, and will give that kid the chance to be everything that he potentially can be in his college career. So somebody that I've been really impressed by, and I think it's a very bright future.
So second down, and I'm glad you brought this up. This is brought to you by the Legendary Home Loans team. 550 plus Nolecast listeners have decided to use Legendary Team. 844-FSU Loan is the number to call. I've done it twice. It's awesome, man. Just a great experience, and obviously Noel's helping Noel's people who really care about you. So do any of these guys have pro potential? I think yes. I think a decent number of them actually do. Washington, the age thing will certainly be a factor come draft time, but I could see Darius Washington getting drafted. I talked to a guy who knows Florida pretty well, And he was like, but I don't think Florida upgraded over Richie Leonard. Like the narrative out of Gainesville is that they did. And I was like, I don't know, man. Like how many studs are looking to come to a team that hadn't made a bowl game and their win total's 4.5 and at the top of the hot seat list. I kind of feel like I thought Leonard was a decent player. Not amazing, but like, and granted, he's 23, but like I think a lot of these linemen coming out now, with the exception of the couple that are just 3-and-out guys, are pretty old. So maybe that doesn't ding him. Mo is probably not a pro guy just based on the size. There's certain minimums you kind of need to play in the league. I can't totally rule out Byers. I saw some NFL scouting grades, and right now he's got like a 7th/undrafted, but that's based off last year where he had a 2.9% blown block rate. I mean, if he can cut that down from 2.9 to 2.0 with his body, possibly,
Jeremiah, just when it gets bad, it can't get like, I've got to take you out of the game bad.
Right.
And that's what it is. Jeremiah's, I mean, you watch him, you can tell he's got a basketball background. I would say he's probably got the, just because you have good feet doesn't mean that like you get set and some of the stuff that I'm saying, but he's got as good a feet as anybody on the team at that position, in my opinion, at least in pass pro. I think both your guards have some kind of professional future. I agree. Look, Mo has faced the challenges that he has throughout his career, and I think has battled probably 10x more than people realize to be where he is and just to put on the weight or keep the weight that he has. We probably have a little bit different information, but trust me, I get a lot of draft grades and stuff via the NIL route. I think Mo at the very least is a immediate invite to camp, if not like a 7th round pick or something like that. Like Mo will have a professional opportunity. And
if he can keep getting bigger, I mean, like that would be huge. And even if he can't, like Alabama won plenty of national titles with centers who did not get drafted. Okay. Like that, the center is kind of the one position where a really good team, you'll see a guy be like, I don't know if that guy's a pro or not. Guards, no. Guards at these teams that win natties are generally like huge and mean, and think about FSU's 2013 team, right? It Josue and Jackson, that's
may we all be so lucky to have DJU and Mo get in a argument in the 4th quarter of the national championship game while we're up by 24 or whatever it was. That who was the Bama quarterback at his center? Was that Barrett?
It was McCarron, because remember the announcer was talking about McCarron's girlfriend and mom.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Notre Dame game. They were so bored because they were just crushing.
So bored they started yelling at each other with 6 minutes left in the game or whatever it was. Yeah.
In hindsight, that Bama Georgia game in the Dome was probably actually for the national title. I mean, clearly, I think Otto has real pro potential. You mentioned Ferguson, like assuming that he starts, but I don't even know if he's guaranteed to, right? Like I think it's encouraging that Keandre is somebody who will continue to push there, and I don't think that's because they both stink and just can't figure out somebody. Like I think both have some interesting abilities. With Ferguson, it's going to just be like, hey, can you be consistent? Can you be a little more physical and consistently make it? Keandre, there's the foot speed limitation, which I think is pretty obvious when you watch him, but at the same time, there's a lot he can do. And this line just feels so much bulkier to me than it was last year. Like they just look bigger and like more like they belong on an elite team. And that to me is extremely encouraging.
If you go back and watch the LSU game from second half on or whatever, you get a good appreciation for what Keandre can do and what having that type of physicality means in certain situations. So he's a great piece to have.
Who do you think so third down, Chad actually sent this in, and we should say that Chad's question is actually sponsored by Matt Lewis, because of course it is with congruity. Shout out to Matt's son for making it through summer session in Tallahassee. So he said a lot of podcast listeners have been hitting him up lately, and that is fantastic. What do you think the best starting 5 is? Like ideal world, everybody's healthy, which obviously it's the O-line, so that's not super common. But like, is there? I don't know that there is like a no doubt this is the best 5 you can put on the field for this. I struggle with this in pre-show quite a bit because I think they have options.
Yeah, I mean, they certainly do. Just I think mentally, it's very easy to default to, left tackle Darius, center Mo, right tackle Jeremiah, with the idea that Rob Scott can push as health dictates, and maybe as opponent dictates, and then 3 transfers, and I'm going back a year to group Keandre in there at guard. I mean, I think it's hard to pick out a 5. I think it's maybe not as hard to pick out your first 7, but
yeah,
haven't put pads on yet, and it would not surprise me in a week, Bud, to be like, okay, we've had 3 practices with full pads on, and Andre Otto is starting somewhere. Like there may be somebody that truly emerges. I don't know that he's a starter, but again, I think he's pushing for reps and somebody that you can spell in. But like, Estes had a pretty good spring. I mean, took a significant jump and is in the rotation as well. And I think it's just, to your point, as we opened with, and this is a different group. Just the amount of bodies you have, the depth that you have, if one guy sprains an ankle and is out for 2 games, doesn't mean that all of a sudden you have to redesign what you're trying to do schematically. I can't tell you the starting 5. I can tell you that this group is, it's been a long time, more than 10 years that I think you can get, 7, 8, 9 deep in the offensive line rotation and feel comfortable about it.
I mean, 6 years ago now, 7 years ago now, I remember we were at fall camp. Guy goes down, and preseason, you guys are talking. We're like, they're screwed.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, watch, all the practice reports now are going to say this D line is killing this O line, and then they're awesome. Like, yeah, well, I think they are decent on the D line, but like, and you saw it. I mean, they just, if you only have 5, that's a problem. Like we talked about, strong link, weak link system. I mean, O line. I'm glad you mentioned Estes. Like that's huge. I don't know that Armella is necessarily like where I want him to be, but like he's probably in your 10, right? Like somewhere in that group. Maybe Jalen potentially at some point. And I mean, it's a long season, dude. Like guys will probably develop as the year goes on. Even if Otto doesn't come out starting, what's to say that by week 7 or week 8 he doesn't really click it on? And I mean, your back stretch is tough.
Mm-hmm.
Like Clemson, Miami, and Notre Dame are, I don't care what order you put them in, but they're all going to be power rated as like top 15, top 18 type teams, and that'll be a significant challenge with those trio. Like, all those 3 guys have dudes who are going to get drafted pretty highly on the D line. Like, you're going to need the depth to get through that. Let's go 4th down here.
4th down, and do not wait until 4th down or whatever else. Charlie Park is always there. No need for procrastination. But if you do find yourself in a late down situation and need a quality dining opportunity or rooftop bar in Tallahassee, I can assure you Charlie Park is very much endorsed by Bud and I with the greatest degree of confidence possible. It's a fantastic place, beautiful location, fun menu, great drinks. Charlie Park, rooftopbar.com, right up there next to the AC Marriott and overlooking Cascade Park.
So Chad also asked, will Early, Armella, and Simmons develop into solid starters? I think if I was setting the over-under on that, I think there's a chance that you end up getting, like, I don't know, 2-ish starters out of that group. And I'm not entirely sure who that is, but I still have, some faith there. Certainly with Simmons, I mean, the ceiling is just so high. He just missed last year due to the health, basically missed it, due to the health concern. And he was already a fairly raw prospect. It stinks that it happened, but I know he's still working hard, and they still have a bunch of faith that he's going to be, the ceiling is still extremely high with him. So like, that's super encouraging. And then also, do you feel the room is getting to that kind of top 4 or 5 group that you mentioned? It's
top
probably
4 or 5 group. What, the conference,
like Georgia, Texas, LSU, Oregon,
okay.
To be like a clear favorite to win the Joe Moore Award type thing. I wouldn't be insanely shocked if they had like a top, a line that threatened to be top 5 in 2 years, because that would mean like Simmons, Otto, some of your younger guys, Tite, like there's some bodies there that really look like they belong. I don't think it's insane to make that a goal within 2 years.
Yeah.
Now, it doesn't mean it necessarily happens, but
I think this year's goal, can you have a top 15 line nationally? Yeah. And I think that's doable. I do. Now, you have to have some things go right for you, but I think that's very much in play. Maybe top 10 even, if you get the level of play that some of these guys need to, a little bit of a reach, but still a reasonable reach. Yeah, I think that's a realistic expectation for this group. And I mean, when was the last time that we even were looking at ourselves with a straight face talking about that type of ranking for this group? It's at least 10 years. So
yeah, I completely agree. And you think about nationally, man, some of these teams really lost quite a bit, right? Michigan lost all 5 starters, I believe, and we'll see how good the backups are. It's Michigan; they do a pretty good job with it. But Penn State lost 3 draft picks, including a first-round tackle and a very good center who was like a 4th rounder, and their other tackle as well. Like that's one. Ohio State's probably better than you up front, but like I don't know if their world's better up front. That's still a concern. I know that they have there in Columbus. I mean, Washington lost literally all 5 starters. Like Ole Miss picked up a couple. They're pretty good. Oklahoma lost, I think, all 5. So that's never really fun to have to rebuild losing all 5 starters.
Mm-hmm.
Although actually, in theory, I guess FSU could be in that position next year. But I think we like some of the young guys in this room quite a bit. Miami's probably good. Clemson, I don't know. There's a couple teams that are really clustered, but then after that, I think it's wide open. It's there for you to go take it. And I'm excited to see what this team can do. That's all I got. You got anything else?
We'll do a 3-minute addendum after I've seen we've had a chance to watch 2 or 3 full padded practices. Yeah. It's tough to evaluate this group in shells. And yes, there's a little video board on the sideline that you can look at post play, but anybody that tells you like, oh, I was at practice and I know everything is just full of shit, to be perfectly honest with you. There's so much stuff going on at once. It's impossible to know, in real time, oh, who was that guy matched up against, blah, blah, blah. So this group in particular, you need time, and you need film, and you need the guys to be wearing full pads. So
totally. I hope the addendum is positive. I think it will. Yes. We will see. Oh man.
At this rate, Rudy might just buy another slot because it's just working out for him so much. So
I like it.
We'll talk to Matt about it.
Awesome. All right, man. We'll see you on the flip.